Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello and welcome along to Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. It's great to have you with us today. Great show lined up for you as well. On today's show, we're going to be talking about how businesses are changing and forcing us all to become digitally skilled and highly connected. But what does that mean to all of us? Why should you be digitally skilled? And what does being highly connected mean? Is it just going to be another show about social media? Or is it going to be something a little bit more? And what are you doing right now to get your message out to your customer base? How are you communicating with them? What are the key things that you're doing at the moment? Well, joining me in the studio today is Penny Power OBE, founder and CEO of the Business Cafe. Penny, it's lovely to have you with us.
It's lovely to be here.
For those people that are just intrigued by the name but know nothing more about you, Penny Power, who is Penny Power? What are you all about then?
I love that, intrigued by the name. I know so many people think that I've made that name up.
Yeah, made up name. Yeah. Well, we were talking about it before. We'll go into that story later.
We will.
Right.
What am I all about? Well, I suppose I'm about technology, and I have been since I was 19, but it's about the enablement of technology. And since 98, I've all been about how technology connects us as friends, and especially business, the business sector, and how we can leverage it.
So when you say technology, I mean, so you, university, school, whatever, you went into business. So what were you doing in business?
So I joined the computer industry in '83 when I was 19, so I'm 52 now. Mm-hmm. And I joined it just as the PC was going on to the office desk. And I was in distribution. And I had the most fantastic career in that for 10 years until I had my baby, my first of three. So I learnt a lot about channel management because we were in distribution, and it was the easy days of no internet, not even any CRM systems on your desk, and it was very much, we built our business based on relationships, and we were distributing software and hardware. It
was a very exciting time. You know, you look back at that time in the computer industry, and you're dead right. I was working in the industry very similar. I was on the tech side of things, and I was going out and fixing them. You would sell them, I would go out and fix them, and it was a fascinating time because there wasn't that obsession, I think, with this connectivity that we now need to have. I was sitting in a cafe the other day, on Saturday in fact, and two Chinese guys, I think they sat down on the table next to us, and they never conversed with each other. They sat there all the way through the meal with their smartphones held out in front of them, and they were tapping away on the social media platforms, which I actually think is a bit of a shame, to be honest with you. I think people have lost the art nearly of communicating face to face, and you walk down the street. But going back to when you got into the industry, long question, short answer. So you're in the computer industry. Yep. What was the next step for you?
So I was fortunate, my husband and I planned our life when we got married for me to be able to stop work, to have the children, and that was really important for me. And I guess in 92, when Hannah was born, the flexible working world didn't exist. And then during that period, 92, when I effectively stopped, through to 97, when I started again by starting a new business concept, which I'm sure we'll talk about, that's when the internet really took over. And email, we all had our CompuServe emails that were made up of numbers and things, and my husband was doing e-commerce. I did a little bit of interim stuff, and I always kept my ear to the ground. But what happened was in 97, Thomas was being a sort of e-commerce guy, and the whole world was talking about e-commerce, new channels to market, e-procurement, websites, people walking around with their business card because it had a .com thing on it. They thought it was like £1 million lottery card. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get really excited about that. To me, technology in itself doesn't excite me. And channels to market do excite me, but it wasn't about the fact that we can now have a website or an e-commerce system. What really excited about the internet for me was the opportunity for individuals to connect. And I really liked that thought. And actually I had, in an interim period, had started a home-based network of technical friends, selling computers into the home, because around that time, before PC World was out, Compaq had come up with this fantastic computer that allows you put your Osborne books into.
Gosh, these are names from the past, aren't they? Compaq. You'll be talking Apricot next and all the others, won't you? Yes.
Yeah, we'll bring out all the IT people onto the show.
Everybody's saying, oh, that's interesting.
It's quite nice, isn't it? And it's amazing how your networks converge, actually, as you move through these technical industries. Anyway, so I had tried to build a community of 690 people who were in my network, and I was doing it through email. There was no other way. And I said to my husband, you know, it would be so wonderful if you could create a community online of business people, and we could talk to each other 24/7.
So this is pre-Facebook, but more importantly, this is pre-LinkedIn. Yeah,
so the timeline is that conversation with my husband happened on the 7th of February 98 in a Pizza Express, and LinkedIn started in 2002, Facebook 2004, and Twitter 2006.
So what you came up with then was the original business social platform. Yeah,
and of course people were doing it in Yahoo groups to a certain extent, but they were forums. But this was very different, and I'm unbelievably proud of it. And I, of course, didn't do it on my own. I mean, Thomas was amazing. He's an incredible networker and a brilliant public speaker and an awesome man. I mean, even now, I just think that what he does for people, just randomly, the support he gives people. So he was a real big part of the culture that we built. And then we had a fantastic guy called Glenn Watkins who came in as the CEO, because I wanted to be with the children at home, and I wanted to make sure I brought 3 great kids into the world and nurtured them as much as I can. As I say, flexible working wasn't around. So I didn't want to be the CEO of this business.
A lot of people will look at you and think, I mean, fantastic, she comes up with a great idea, she's put this all together. Do you what's the resistance at the time that people needed some form of a social... I mean, we weren't really calling it a social media platform then, were we? But was the resistance against it? Because there was resistance against the internet when it started. I remember once speaking to somebody who was involved with a shopping centre and saying to him, you need to have a website. And he said, it'll never catch up.
Oh, I know, it's gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, massive resistance. I mean, this is the thing, when you are an evangelist for a subject or a pioneer, it's not easy. And I'm sure there are lots of people that you've interviewed and lots of people that listen in that are pushing against really tough boundaries. And what was a very interesting part of that was you had to learn to help the people that could already feel the change. Because I became really desperate to help the people that were almost furthest away from me in terms of understanding it. You know, there were enough people that could feel it. And the members are amazing. Academy doesn't exist as an organisation anymore. We sold it in 2012 and it was renamed. However, the members, the Academy members that sit all across the world, we had members in 200 countries. Thomas and I are still connected to hundreds and thousands of them, and they're terrific people, and they were the very early adopters of understanding it's about friendship first. And that was the culture we created, and I really learnt that these networks that people talk about, I don't like the phrase network, I like the phrase community, because community immediately means it's about us. And I know lots of people that teach networking obviously say go out and be interested in the other person. They tend to teach the
technology behind it though, don't they? The how-to as opposed to the why-to.
You're absolutely right. And well, you've had Nikki on here, Nikki Creel, who introduced me to you. She's a great person understanding the philosophy as well. And it's what I wrote a book. I wrote a blog. So we introduced blogging on Academy in 2002, and we were the first community blog, and we ended up being the largest business blog in the country. And we had to teach people what blogging was and how not to do it as an advert. And I wrote a blog called Emotional Wealth Leads to Financial Wealth. And I always believed that if we were kind to each other and if we put people first and relationships first and what we now call friendship first, commerce second, then you would build that trust. And I always believed that the world would become about trust. Who can we trust? I mean, there are now 5.5 million businesses registered in the UK alone. Massive amounts of opportunity to broadcast and create the illusion of a business and look huge online. But now we want to know who the person is behind these businesses. We have to know it. Whether you're the CEO of Barclays or one of the bigger, the other big banks or any organisation, Vodafone, O2, these companies, we trust them because we have our money, we have direct debits going out to them. We see money going out of our account, and we need to know that somebody is actually caring about us and that banks are looking after our money. And
do you think that's gone though a little bit? Do you think, due to the size of the social media platforms that are out there, that they've become slightly nearly anonymous, really? What we're dealing with, that people feel they should be part of it, but maybe aren't using it as well as they should do, or they are nearly characterless platforms. I mean, well, Facebook, for instance, isn't, because Facebook you're talking to your friends. But what about the business platform?
Well, I think this is the maturity we've got to go through. There's been this massive industry within it of automation. And how can you automate a friendship, a genuine trust-based friendship? And so things like Infusionsoft and all these funneling systems that people have always been a little bit concerned by them. Because I believe in quality relationships and me having time for people. I did a talk at an insurance mortgage brokers thing last week, and I followed a very, very clever gentleman who was talking about the processes and the automation. And when I stood up and talked, I actually almost ripped up my whole speech based on what he had talked about. Because I looked out to a group of people who in the old days would have done most of their business in the wine bar on a Friday evening. And that's what they were great at, because they built trust. So I said to them, I know we have to live in a world of technology now, but it's about understanding the person, the customer behind it. These are humanity networks. Everybody that we talk to online is a person. I mean, there are bots, but most people are human with their vulnerabilities, their pains, their issues, and they want to be a friend, and they want to know that they're normal, and therefore I think we have to be very careful how much we automate. And so, you are seeing CEOs of organisations tweeting and communicating, and boards of directors realising it. But fundamentally, I mean, today, yes, we can talk about large companies, but individually in this country, we have 5.5 million businesses. 95% of them are micro businesses or below in size. So a micro business is under 9 employees. 75% of our registered businesses are sole traders. Average sole trader's income is £27,000. They are heroes of this country. They are the brave people that they have to know everything about a business. They can't just say, I work in this department. And I think they're phenomenal people. And they talk to one another genuinely on Facebook.
Well, I'll tell you what, hold that thought for a moment. So if you're on one of those small businesses in the UK, you're the cornerstone, you are the pillar of what keeps the larger organisations actually functioning and being successful. It's got to start somewhere, and it's actually starting with you. It's a big responsibility, but you've got to take it firmly and squarely on your 2 shoulders and, grow your business. And with your success will come success for all the other businesses around you that you supply or that they supply you. Listen, we're going to come back to Penny in just a few moments' time here on this edition of Business Connections Live. Now, if you joined us on last week's edition, we were talking about due diligence in Brexit. Now, there's a tricky old situation. I mean, we are still in the position at the moment where we don't know exactly what is going to happen over the next coming months or years, for that matter. But if you're a small organisation, if you're a large organisation, what should you be doing right now to prepare yourself? Because something is going to happen. So is it time to step back for a moment and to have maybe an internal audit, an internal check, look at the different systems that are within your organisation, your copyright, your tax issues that are going to be there, those kind of issues. Are you going to have a moment just to stop for a few moments and to take that audit and see what you should be doing? Well, on last week's edition of the programme, we had Linda Bazan. She was talking about due diligence for Brexit. It's a really clever idea, and maybe every organisation in the UK should be doing it right now. Just to give you a bit of a taster of what happened on last week's edition, here's Linda from Business Connections Live. Now, it's on everybody's lips at the moment. Today we're going to be talking about post-Brexit due diligence. What does that mean, and what could it mean for your organisation, for your business? What should you be doing? And of course, Article 50 hasn't been triggered yet, but what's going to happen when it is? What should you be doing, and what should you be doing to prepare before Article 15 is actually triggered? My guest in the studio today is Linda Bazant. Not only is she a part of Business Connections Live, she's also a lawyer and an advisor and consultant for organisations who are looking at getting their organisations sorted out and in the appropriate position for Brexit.
What we're saying is that once Article 50 is triggered, that Brexit will come into force in 2019, and we need to be ready. Well, contracts, as we've discussed, trademarks, employee situations, data protection, currency risk. Currency risk is quite a big one, because when we actually leave, as we've already seen, the currency fluctuate anyway between the EU and the pound and the dollar. What's going to be happening then? We need to be prepared and ready for that, because there could be cost implications to the companies in this country. If you think about the fact that an awful lot of our legislation is EU legislation at the moment, the general consensus of opinion is that the unpicking won't start immediately. But it could well do, just to protect British businesses. And if you think about when we actually voted, and one of the problems that we had in this country, and one of the reasons why we voted to leave Europe, especially for small businesses, was the red tape that is attached to businesses, and they want it gone. Well, if they've already got long-term contracts, for example, as I said, say somebody took out a 5-year contract last year, that means that in 2019, when we leave Europe, that contract will probably be governed by an awful lot of EU law. Therefore, you've got to have a look through that contract and make absolutely certain that when we leave the EU, that there isn't anything in that contract that could mean that we are in breach of that contract. Right, well, with regard to EU legislation that's already a part of British law, for quite some time that will remain part of British law, because it's going to take an awfully long time to unpick. And it may well be that some of the EU legislation we're actually quite happy with and we want to keep, because the general consensus of opinion is that we will keep all of the laws. However, when you think about the reasons why we voted to leave Brexit, as I'd said before, businesses were saying there was an issue with red tape. So they've got to address the red tape issues. Even if an awful lot of EU law is something we're going to keep, I think businesses will be lobbying government to say, this is what we wanted, you haven't dealt with it, and we need you to deal with it now. So one of the issues, for example, is the Human Rights Act. An awful lot of people in this country have a problem with some of the Human Rights Act. We're not saying we don't want there to be human rights, but I think that they think that perhaps it's just a little bit too much and they want it changed. Tax issues, VAT issues, huge red tape with regard to tax and VAT, and PAYE and insurance, which obviously affects employees. And businesses are crying out for that to be simplified. And what the government are supposedly looking at is a transitional period whereby EU trademarks that we've already got still stand. They need to be looking at streamlining, as you said, but it isn't about people. It can be about data. How many files have you actually got in your computer system that you can really purge? And now's the opportunity to do it. And it's really important for businesses to look at this as an opportunity and not an issue that's going to cost them money or a challenge. I'm Linda Bazant, post-Brexit advisor, and I'm here to advise companies on due diligence that they need to be aware of heading towards 2019. Now, trying to predict the legislative landscape post-Brexit just isn't possible at this stage. However, what is clear is that you need to start your due diligence now and put risk management procedures in place to ensure that you're fully prepared for any changes that may result from the UK government's negotiations with Europe. You need to have an awareness of how much your current business setup is reliant on the EU, and how you may need to restructure your business to accommodate any changes. Advanced preparation for the possible cost implications is vital so that they are not a big hit in 2019. Areas to be aware of: contracts, trademarks, employment issues, currency issues, long-term financing, data protection, and termination and force majeure issues. Although there is a 2-year timetable after the triggering of Article 50, a wait-and-see approach could be detrimental to your business. You need to prepare now and do your due diligence now.
Linda Bazan there talking about due diligence for Brexit. And if you would like more details on that, you know to get in contact. Of course, Linda is actually part of the team here. When I say part of the team, she's the co-founder. She is the team. She's all of it, in fact. If you want more details, if you want to contact Linda, all you've got to do is drop us an email to studio@businessconnectionslive.com. You can drop us an email there. In fact, if you like a programme just like this one, you could do that simply by dropping us an email and having a word with either myself, Steve Highland, or Linda Bazan. If you'd like to just pick the phone up and give us a call and maybe just have a bit of a chat, we'd love to talk to you. 01784 256 777. You can follow our stream of consciousness at BCL Business TV, and also put a hashtag in front of that, and you'll get all the bits and pieces that are going on here at Business Connections Live. And don't forget Facebook. We get a lot of response from Facebook. We do like Facebook very much. We're using Facebook Live. A lot of people talking about Facebook at the moment and doing live broadcasts on it. Facebook really getting their act together. Technology, the platform is absolutely fabulous. Them and YouTube have got it pretty much sewn up at the moment. So two fantastic platforms. Incidentally, don't forget iTunes, Roku, a whole number of different places you can actually either watch or listen to the programme on. But if you do want to get in touch with us, please don't hesitate, and we'd love to talk to you and find out if we can be of any assistance in growing your business and making it more successful. You're watching Business Connections Live. Lovely to have your company with us today. We are live on a Monday. Joining me in the studio is Penny Power OBE, founder and CEO of the Business Cafe. We'll tell you more about the Business Cafe because that's the latest incarnation of what Penny does. But you were talking earlier on about the Academy, which is kind of the, maybe not in the hierarchy of LinkedIn, they don't think this, but it was LinkedIn, it was a previous kind of feel to LinkedIn, wasn't it? It was a professional platform. Do you think, with all the different platforms that we've got right now, that what we're doing is that we're trying to force people to move more and more online, and that we're losing the art of actually doing business offline, meeting people face to face? We hear about networking events, and we've talked about them here on the programme, where people will go, how do you network properly? But it's that social interaction face-to-face that some people are now beginning to find difficult.
It's a really good point. And gosh, there's a huge answer to that, and I'm trying to think how I can.
It was a huge question, actually.
But I think, you know, we can't be too obsessive about either. We have to blend our lives and blend the online and the offline. So I always believe that my conversations online lead to my coffees offline. And I will do a huge amount of my connections and business development and research through the online world, following great people on Twitter that I want to be connected with, contacting them and asking for a coffee. And it's incredibly successful when I do that. What's interesting is that whether you're networking offline or online, the mindset of the two things is exactly the same in terms of how you should approach it. And there is nothing worse offline than when you go into a room, a networking event, and somebody's just out to broadcast themselves and put their business card in your hand. So off-putting. Exactly the same is of the online world. And so both places, if somebody just genuinely goes in and becomes a citizen of that network or a part of the community and becomes a friend, that person becomes that trusted source of information and knowledge, and people therefore want to go to them.
What kind of wastage do you think you see on that? And I know that's a very hard word to use for the question, but you know, you're having this kind of dialogue with a number of different people. Some of it's not going to work and some of it will work. So is it a case that you do, in your business, do you do 100 expecting to get through to 10?
I know. So, you know, if you are a sales director or you're really running a process-orientated company, of course you're going to look for those conversion rates. And maybe being a smaller business, you know, we get a feel, because it's our own business, as to whether or not these connections are worthwhile. My husband came up with this terminology in 2009. Somebody interviewed him and said, what is it about the mindset of somebody that you see as being successful online? And he said, well, they're very open, not closed, as people. They're very random, not selective in the way that they connect. And they're very supportive, not controlling. And he said...
Do you think they're lucky as well?
Oh, my goodness.
Does that come into it?
No. Somebody once said to me what luck meant. It's location, understanding, connections and knowledge.
Let me write that one down. I quite like that one. I'm going to use that one in the future. It's a bit like the overnight success. It took 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where. I mean, I certainly have never relied on luck in my life. I'm very lucky to meet my husband, but, you know, I don't know. But I think that the more we connect, the more we are a connected person, the more luck's going to happen. And is that because I'm in the right location, I have the understanding, I'm connected, and I've got knowledge? But
it's interesting what you were saying. You were talking about the process. You were talking about a client to me while we were watching Linda, and it was interesting that the process you were taking that through. And I wonder if the process was quite straightforward, wasn't it? You actually were having a dialogue with them. You were listening to what they were saying. You were responding to what they were doing on Twitter.
Yep,
you were doing all of that. You were following it up on LinkedIn. You were going back to them, so they felt like they felt that you were listening because you were, and from that then led to an open dialogue, which would lead to the coffee.
Yeah. Gosh, that makes it sound like it would take a month, the way you just described it.
It does. But the thing is that there are a lot of people out there that will be going, let's do social media, and I'll do a couple of tweets, I'll link in with a few people. It doesn't work for me.
No, so I must admit, I do all my business development on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. I love it, and I never put time aside for it. How weird is that? I network in the gaps. So I'm sitting on a train up to...
Put that one down as well, because that's another great one, isn't it? Networking in the gap. Love it.
It is. So I'm on the train to London. I'm fortunate enough to have a bit of a signal on that flipping train that hardly ever has a signal. And I come across an article from a company who I would love to be involved in the business cafe. And so I read that article, I retweet it, I follow that person, I praise them for the article. I then look them up on LinkedIn. I connect with them on LinkedIn. Little tip there, if you're using LinkedIn on a phone, you can connect with anyone. It's really weird. I don't know whether that's a bug. I don't think it would be.
It's a bug we don't want to tell them about, though, because it is very handy, yes.
Isn't it great? I'm sure a lot of people discovered that. So I connect with them, and more often than not, people say thanks very much, and they will accept my connection. And so I do a lot of that, connecting with... Now, people, what we have to remember is, no matter how much we try not to have egos, people have egos. And if you've pored over an article, so somebody has written an article on bookkeeping and the power of digital bookkeeping, and somebody reads it, praises it, shows that they've read it, shares it with their network, and what is fundamental is that the person who shares it has a good network that's also relevant to them.
I was going to say, is that important? Because... You know, if Steve Hyland was to connect in with the, shall we say, the managing director of the large global corporate, and Penny Power OBE links in, there is a different weighting there, isn't there?
Oh, I don't know, really. I don't know. But yes, I do think we need to build up our credibility and be verified online. But what the point is that I have always believed in the offline. You have to have these conversations in order to get the coffee. And with the Academy, we had 5,000 offline events a year, and bringing the business cafe to market is a physical cafe on the high street that we're creating so that we can bring that friendship environment and be able to network in your gaps offline to the high street. So I don't think that there should be a huge difference between the online attitude and the offline attitude to the way that we develop our credibility and build our businesses.
What about mindset then? Do you think people in business these days aren't particularly in the right mindset when they're doing this? Are they starting from the wrong place? You know, instead of going from, it's not from A to B, but they're starting already at Z. They're going the wrong way about approaching it.
I think some are, and I think some aren't. And I think that, you know, I really celebrate the attitude of the sole trade and the small business who has adopted these technologies. They do understand it's about connecting and having these random open conversations. I've got a business cafe group on Facebook. We've got over 400 members in it. I started it about 4 weeks ago. Phenomenal the way that they talk and chat and share and support each other, and therefore end up doing business with each other. I think where the major issue is in large organisations that still have the controls in place, where they say, well, we've gone social because a couple of people tweet in the marketing department, and they don't allow their staff to use Twitter, which to me is like not allowing them to use a phone 40 years ago to do any business development.
But there's a big danger, isn't there? And a lot of companies are really very hesitant when we've got the likes of Yammer and things like that, these internal social
ones.
media platforms. But the moment you start to allow this sounds awful now, even as I start to say it, it doesn't feel right, but the moment you start to use your workforce to project the personality and the character of your business, you are exposing yourself to all sorts of things. You're in a position where you could actually be starting to put your dirty washing out in public.
I'm not saying that this isn't a massive challenge. I am not underestimating for large companies what a huge challenge it is, but it starts with the CEO and the board of the organisation of that. And whether you're a small business or a large business, the leader of the business has to realise the benefit of him being a connected citizen online.
It was interesting. We had Justin Rue. He was on from a large, I don't know whether you've come across him, but he's an internal comms professional.
Oh, right.
He'll like me for mentioning him, but he came up with a strategy within his organisation. You can watch this. We'll find out what programme it's on. And it was all about cloud busting. And the way he saw it was that originally the management team would sit above the clouds and the workforce would sit below the clouds. And there was no communication going on between them. So they actually instigated a communications campaign, an internal one called cloud busting, and they actually started the communication working all the way through it. It was an interesting program. If you get a chance, do check that one out. He went through the entire philosophy behind what they were trying to achieve with it and the successes that they had. And you have these charts where you see how motivated people move from one place to another, the ones that care, the ones that don't care. He was able to actually give analytics that showed the success of it. So it shows how important it is.
It is important, and also by 2020, and that used to sound years away, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
It's now 3 years away. By 2020, a third of the global workforce will be a millennial. And millennials are brought up in this connected world. They spend on average 6 hours a day online. They're not wasting their time. They're highly connected. Your children, my children. They are doing an amazing job in building their reputations. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't learn more, and a lot of them still don't have a context of business inside the digital networks, and they need to learn that. But the talented millennials that large organisations or small organisations want to attract want to know that they're going to be following and being involved in a leader who is connected. Not only connected, has a sense of purpose, wants to know what their conversations are around their business, what matters to their business. They're not going to attract that talent. So there's a huge shift happening, and all the people, my husband included, who work with boards of directors to help them go social, they are going to be in short supply because the demand in these organisations that are going to need those people, all those social media experts that you hire, are going to be highly demanded. And it's going to hit them like a train.
And it's going to happen very shortly, isn't it?
It is.
If it's not already happening. Listen, hold that thought for a little bit. We'll have a little bit of a break just for a few moments. Fascinating insight, actually. I don't know if you're sitting there at the moment, you're thinking to yourself, is my business in the right place? Am I doing some of the things that Penny has suggested? Should I be doing some of the things that Penny has suggested? Am I having those intelligent conversations with potentially new clients? You may be in the camp that is saying to yourself, well, I've tried social media, I've tried to do this communication, in fact, it just doesn't work for me. Is it not working because you're just not doing it right? Are you not spending the appropriate time? Are you not connecting in a way that is going to elicit a response back? I mean, that could well be the case. I mean, are you working towards that coffee, as Penny said? Is that what you're trying to do? Or are you just working all the time towards the sale? And you're thinking to yourself, well, actually, I just want the sale. I don't want the coffee, just the sale, straight to the sale. that just doesn't work, does it? You think when you're forming a friendship with somebody, you can't go from nothing to something without all the bits in between. You've got to have the bits in between. Listen, more from Penny in just a few moments' time here on this edition of Business Connections Live. Now, we thought it would be a really good idea on this particular programme to look back and to look for an associated programme, something that was going to be rather relevant. And incidentally, I've just been told as well that if you do want to find and watch Justin Rue's programme, it was programme 100, and it went out September of 2015, September 2015. Programme 100, it was called Cloud Busting. If you want to check out the program, you can find it at the website at businessconnectionslive.com. And don't forget, there's over 200 hours of free business advice online for you to sit down. So experts just like Penny Power come into the studio, they sit down, they give us their time, they give us an hour of their time. It's a bit like having somebody come to your office and give you a consultancy for an hour for free. You can't get it anywhere else online. You'd have to pay for it. And here you're getting it absolutely for nothing. Drop us an email. Tell us what you think. Get online. LinkedIn with us. Go onto Facebook. Tell us what you think of the shows. Give us your feedback, because your feedback makes our community work more effectively. Now, a little while back we had Steve Mills, the prudent marketeer. He was on the programme. He was talking about how to retarget your ad campaigns. How do you go about that? Do you sometimes go onto somebody's website and you find that that website follows you around the web, no matter where you go? You go on to YouTube, there are ads there. Then you go on the Google and there are ads there again. You've been stalked online. Well, how do you go about doing that? It was a great show. And if you miss it out, here are the key takeaways with Steve Mills.
Okay, the key takeaways. I'd say number one is to make sure that you give this a try. You know, I can't sit here and say this is definitely going to work for you, but what I will do is say that you can try this for next to nothing with a small conservative test. So, you know, that would be number one. Give this a go. The second key takeaway, and I'd like to say this is almost an endorsement for Business Connections Live, but I'm saying it because I'm a massive believer in the power of video. You know, video is, you know, in my opinion, the way forward for your business and for your marketing. You must use it. There are so many big advantages in using video. You know, you can use video in your remarketing campaign. You can use video now in YouTube. YouTube's got a, you know, pay-per-click advertising, and you can use video. You know, it's just a fantastic opportunity. And the other thing about that is 99% of your competitors are probably not yet still using it. So it's a great opportunity to be ahead of the curve. And then the third one, I'm going to go back to what I just said a few minutes ago. Think about referral. You know, this is the most powerful form of marketing on the planet. And if you don't have a system for it, then, you know, you're potentially losing money and you're not harvesting that pot of gold there.
Talking all about referrals there. It's funny, we had another program where the follow-up is always the most important bit. Are you one of those businesses, you go all the way down the stretch, you do it all bit by bit by bit, and then you get to the very end where you've got a hot lead or a hot prospect, and what you don't do, you don't follow it up. So many businesses do that, and we've come across that a number of times. If you're one of those businesses, I suggest you start doing it now. By the way, if you'd like a program like this one, don't forget you can always contact us, and if you are watching the program, you can watch it on iTunes, right across a whole range of different social media platforms, including Rocco and the lot. What would be rather nice if you could give us a nice review on iTunes. Just go to the iTunes page, click on your view in iTunes, and then when you find that, you'll see there's a link at the top of the page that says ratings and review. Click on that. Click, thank you very much indeed, and then that'll take you to customer reviews. Write something nice, say Penny Power OBE, fantastic, really learned a lot from her, give her 5 stars, she was great, and that'd be a big thank you from us. Now, the thing about that is it grows the community for Business Connections Live, because it means that we then become recommended when somebody else is looking at maybe another business program. So if you can do that for us, we'd really appreciate it. And don't forget, leave something nice about the program that you've watched. And there are something like 159 shows now sitting there on iTunes that you can download and watch on your iPhone, smartphone, tablet, PC, you name it, you can watch them. So we look forward to you being part of our community here at Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live. Great to have you with us. We're live on a Monday. My guest on today's show is Penny Power OBE, founder and CEO of the Business Cafe. We are going to talk about the Business Cafe in a few moments' time. Digital skills. We haven't mentioned digital skills, and we should really, because there are old blokes like me who have got none, and then there are young things, the millenniums, who have, and also reverse mentoring. We hear a lot about mentoring as well. Let's kick off at digital skills. What do you mean by that?
So there's been a bit of a journey for me. Being with the Academy, we obviously needed to help people understand what digital was, because as we said earlier in the conversation, we were very new. People, didn't even know what a blog was when we launched it in 2002, a weblog. So digital skills, obviously, and teaching it has been very, very important to us. Now, digital is a huge subject, and the government talk about it, and they have all these huge investments into digital. It's almost like a manufacturing in its own right, manufacturing code. But a small business, the 75% sole traders in the business population, or the micro businesses, what does digital mean to them? Because they get up in the morning, they're not thinking about digital, they're thinking about the product or the service that they want to deliver. Now, for me, if I use myself as an example, the day I decided to put bookkeeping onto my phone and was able to track my cash flow, send an invoice, and do all of those sorts of things whilst I'm out and about, was a hugely freeing moment. In the same way that I talked earlier about how I network in the gaps, I do my business admin in the gaps, because I use my phone device to do my CRM, tracking my customers, tracking my invoicing, seeing whether I've been paid. I use storage online. I make sure the phone has got the security put into it. So actually, every business now needs to be a digital business. But the digital skills divide, the gap of those skills is vast. In fact, they're saying that the lack of skills is a £63 billion gap. And I don't know how they calculate that, but they say it's a huge gap in this country. So having digital skills as an individual, you have to have the motivation to do it. And there's always been a lot of workshops go on that you can go on. But I believe in something called Skills of Me. I would call it Skills of Me, but like the Internet of Me, it's personalisation. So I'll give you an example. I had a guy contact us through our Facebook group, carpet fitter, and he wrote on this Facebook group, I'm a carpet fitter, but I'm an absolute rubbish businessman, and I'm having a really tough time running my business. So I wrote back to him, I said, let's meet for a coffee. Met him in Cafe Nero in Farnham, discovered that he has massive cash flow problems, got massive amounts of remnants in the warehouse that's costing him a fortune to store. And I said to him, are you using eBay? And he said, no, I never thought of it. And I said, well, I've bought carpet remnants off eBay, why don't you use eBay? His motivation to become digitally skilled came from that point. And so you have to be able to, he then put all his stuff on eBay, and he now sells more stuff on eBay than he does through carpet fitting.
Do you think it's an age-related thing? Is it where we were? We're switched on, I'd like to think.
Yes, we're very switched on.
We're switched on. We know what end of a keyboard to press the buttons on. We know that. But many of our contemporaries don't.
No, they don't. And so you mentioned this term reverse mentoring, which I find really fascinating. 5 years ago, I created the country's first digital marketing apprenticeship. It didn't exist. I created a business called Digital Youth Academy. We invested in a big online platform and created the curriculum for young people to be able to do an apprenticeship in digital marketing. And we helped 1,000 unemployed young people into work. What we discovered through that experience is young people understand digital, and then they can adopt a digital platform really quickly because they've got no mental barriers to it, but they don't understand business. So what we've decided to do within the Business Cafe is, because we are looking after the sole trader, and I said the average income of a sole trader is £27,000, how do they get these skills? We want to deliver digital skills free to them. So we're going to hire digital apprentices inside our cafe, at our cost, and we're going to give them skills to be able to show somebody. So Steve walks in, he says, how do I do my bookkeeping? And they sit side by side, that person, and show them the technical side of how to install Sage or Intuit or Xero or Free Agent into their platform, into their phone, all the technical aspect of it. What that young person doesn't have as they're mentoring that business on that is the business context. So they don't understand cash flow, they don't understand you send an invoice and you hope it gets paid in 30 days. They don't understand business. So equally, I'm a young person, or you're a young person, you're teaching me it, I'm equally teaching you the business context.
So it's going both ways.
Impact. So reverse mentoring is a young person helping an older person, but the older person is therefore helping the younger person. And so we're going to create this across. I mean, our goal at the Business Cafe is to have a Business Cafe on the high street in every town.
You keep alluding to the Business Cafe. We've got the website for the Business Cafe up here at the moment. Just to have a quick gander at what it's about. So your business, your cafe. Welcome to the Business Cafe, a new concept bringing a real cafe to the high street near you, just for local businesses. And you can see that gives a real background. Tell us a little bit more about the Business Cafe. What are you trying to achieve with it? Why are you setting it up, and who's it actually targeting?
Well, I've always believed in the micro business and the sole trader. That's the huge part of our business population. Around most towns there's between 10 to 15,000 businesses registered, but they sit under their stairs or in their bedroom, or they may go and hot desk in some enterprise hub. But one of the key things for them is they're isolated, they're lonely, and it's very easy for your self-esteem to get affected. And the reason they've gone online to the social networks is people are friendly on there to one another, and they read each other's challenges and they make them realise they're not so alone. But the offline's really important. So if you go into a Cafe Nero or Costa or a Starbucks, you see business people sitting in there with their computer. They want the warmth of the cafe, they want the buzz of people around them, but they can't network. So 13th of October 2013, I had got all ready. I walked down Castle Street in Farnham, where I live, to get a train. The train was cancelled, leaves on track, and I walked back and I went and sat in Cafe Nero. And I looked around me and everybody was just like me with their laptops. And I tried to talk to a few people and it looked like I was seducing them, male or female. It looked like I was going to drag them by their hair back up the road to my bedroom. And so I thought, wouldn't it be nice? And I started
Prose
a blog.
getting more interesting now.
So I started a blog. I wish I was sitting in a business cafe and I could talk to people. And I wanted to create that culture. And so the core of it is the culture and the community of us as business people. Ability to network in the gaps. So I could pop in at any time. Now, I believe in Chamber of Commerce, BNI, Brad Burton's for networking. Whatever offline networking you do, I do not want to disrupt that. But I would like to give a home to those places and a sense of community and culture, so that they can use this cafe.
Do you think this could be in the same way as Uber is disruptive to the taxi industry? Could this be disruptive to the networking organisation?
No, I don't want it to be.
You want it to work hand in hand?
Absolutely, and every cafe should be owned locally. I would love it to be crowd-funded at a local level by people. It's a franchise concept. I don't want it to be like a big corporate organisation moving in and saying this is how you should run your local economy. Every cafe, we hire a local person to be the community manager, digital skills people with young people. And no, I don't want to disrupt the networks. On the contrary, we'll have a blackboard, and on the blackboard, Chamber of Commerce will say this event's going on, the IOD, the BNI, the 4 Network, whatever women's groups you belong to, we will definitely encourage people to go networking at those.
How close to realisation then? I know you're talking here, we've got a website. How close to realisation?
So we've just done some rebranding, so the brand is going to change, and I'm excited by the rebranding. And we've just closed all of our investment, and so we're opening our first one in the spring. And
let me ask you this then. So, you know, you've got a name behind you. You're a recognisable brand in your own right. You've gone along to do this. What have been the issues, the problems, in a couple of sentences, that you've come across that you were surprised at? Crikey, why did that happen? Has there been issues with this, or has it been a case of you've had a successful model and you're duplicating and replicating it?
I mean, the first year, so 3 years now I've been working on this. First year was to really substantiate that members would like it. People would come in. Second year was to discover whether or not the software industry that we will be representing and onboarding, the software as a service industry, would use it and pay to be us to do that onboarding for them. Third year was to build the franchise model, and then we needed to build the investment. And as always in this country, the investment's the toughest part. and especially when you're pioneering a new idea. And this is the third business where I've had no route map or no other company to say somebody else has done this. I didn't have that with the Academy, I didn't have it with Digital Youth Academy, and I haven't had it with this. Investment is always hard in this country, and so I would say I have secured it now. Very happy to share with anybody that wants any advice about that. I've done it under the government's EIS scheme, the Entrepreneur Investment Scheme, which is a fertile way but you have to be very connected into high net worths. And that's not my network. I'm not connected into very wealthy people. My heart and my network is people like me who work very hard to look after their families and keep a roof over their head. And so uncovering those networks has been very hard. And I still think there are major, major issues in this country in the attitudes of investors towards new concepts.
We'll give you all the details if you need them to find out more about what the business cafes are all about, where you can find out more details, where you can go if there is one maybe near you, maybe not yet, but there could be one in your high street within the next maybe 6-8 months to a year perhaps. Is that a bit ambitious?
Well, we are now wanting people to contact us if they want one in their town.
So a real opportunity to be right in at the ground floor on what could be an exciting new concept for businesses in your area. We've got more from Penny in just a few moments' time. By the way, if you're sitting there and you're watching Penny and you think, crikey, she's really good at articulating her ideas and getting those key facts over, I wouldn't be as good as that. If you're saying that to yourself at the moment, well, maybe you need a little bit of training. And we do a whole day, a workshop training day, where we invite you to come into the studio and we'll take you through the whole process. We first of all introduce you to what a studio is all about. It's the loneliest place in the whole world, is 6 feet away from the front of a camera, and there's 3 of them in here today, but it's a lonely area, this bit here, because you're on stage, you are performing, you're actually sort of presenting. How would you do? Would you have that peace of mind to be able to portray your business in a professional way? Would you be able to get that keynote, that key fact over about your business? If somebody was to challenge you, would you then find yourself in a position where you were making up maybe corporate policy on the hoof? Would you find yourself dropping in? There's a lot of people that have got into so much trouble over that. Mr. Ratner, to name but one. If you'd like to find out more about this one-day workshop, it involves TV interviewing, it involves a radio phone-in program, also location recording when people are hurling abuse at you from their cars as they drive by. If you'd be interested in coming on a course like that, we'll give you all the details in just a moment, but we had James Griffin from Iris Software. He brought his sales team on the course. 6 of them came on the course in the day. It was a fascinating insight into their business, but more importantly, it was a real learning curve for his workforce. Here's what James said after the course.
I'm James Griffin from Iris Software, and my team have just completed the How to Handle the Media workshop. It was a really great course, it was really fun, and it was a really unique way for them to polish their presentation skills and learn how to answer difficult questions under pressure. So I'd highly recommend this to anybody that values those skills and really wants a great day out with their team.
Great day out. It is a workshop. You're working with your team, and some nice comments there from James as well. Do excuse the finger, by the way. I was trying to karate chop a door frame, and I'm protecting it at the moment, but that's neither here nor there. It's not important. If you'd like more details on the training course, all you've got to do is get in touch with us here. Here comes all the details. studio@businessconnectionslive.com. That's our email address. If you'd like to find out more and maybe see how it fits in, it is a turnkey day, actually. So we take your press releases and we turn those into the key messages or the key interview topics that we talk about. So for instance, if you were a motoring organisation, the programme that you would be involved in would be the motoring show. If you are, in their particular case, if you were a finance organisation or a software company, then it would be the software show. And we do it as a proper show, and we are, well, we can be ruthless. When it goes wrong, we let it go wrong. But then what we do is we show you how to not let it go wrong in the future. If you want to follow us on Twitter, then it's BCL Business TV. There you go. And if you want to go onto Facebook, then why don't you follow us there? Facebook at Business Connections Live. Incidentally, do go to the website as well for that matter at businessconnectionslive.com. All the programmes are there waiting for you to watch, all absolutely free. And also you can sign up, and we are putting together a whole load of support material, and we are looking at the moment putting some form of a receptacle vault there, so there will be premium content as well. So if you'd be interested, simply go along to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. You're watching Business Connections Live. We're live every Monday at 12 noon, and my guest today, been a fascinating show today, is Penny Power OBE. If you found maybe just a little bit of it interesting, you want to watch it again, you can. She's the founder and the CEO of the Business Cafe, which we were just talking about, and who knows, it could well be a business cafe in a high street near you very shortly. We were kind of chatting away there, and there's so many things to cover. What do you think the key things are that we do need to cover, that we've left out so far? Because I know you wanted to go...
Yeah, that's a very generous question. So I think the key things we wanted to talk about was about being connected, and also digital skills, but also we talked a lot about how the biggest chunk of this country, and increasing by about 300 to 400,000 a year, are the sole traders, the business, the small business. And that's the bit that my heart beats and bleeds for, because they are a remarkable group of people. And I shared with you, that how hard it is building business and the financial ups and downs, and many people will have been through the real torment of what happened through the recession. And
it was tough.
Unbelievably tough time. And I think it's where you discovered how determined you were as an individual to work your way through it. Whether that was just pure survival or belligerent determination. And it came down for me to being about mindset, and I think my trigger point was when I discovered how to manage my mind through the whole ups and downs of life. And I think that, I think you've got lots of people in your programmes that have talked, motivational speakers, and I don't think you can ever stop feeding your mind with ways in which you can keep yourself going, getting up every day, because the majority of small businesses don't have success every day. They have a lot of challenges, clients cancelling on them last minute when they thought that they were definitely going to have an invoice next month, and then they've cancelled on them for some
Oh boy, we've all been there, haven't we?
it's the pain of it. I can talk about it and I feel it in my heart and my stomach, and it can really is painful. And I don't think that we all share enough about that, and it's a big part of the culture within the Business Cafe will be, how you can be yourself, you can go in and you can cry or you can laugh.
I think it's actually something that is not taught, isn't it? There are a lot of people in the industry who perhaps are coming up to early retirement, or they get made redundant and they want to go into business for themselves. And the mindset in a corporate is that while you're lying on a beach during your 4 weeks holiday, you're still getting paid.
Yeah.
When you're self-employed, when you are a sole trader or a business owner or an entrepreneur or whatever, when you're lying on the beach, you're earning nothing.
No.
So the holiday is costing you twice as much. Yep. It's costing you to be there, and it's costing you because you can't do any additional work to be there. And I think there's a lot of corporate organisations that don't understand that when they're dealing with the small business.
Oh, I tell you, this is you getting me onto my soapbox, because the number of large companies, corporate companies, who completely rely on us as customers. That we are their huge part of their food chain, their customer supply chain, etc. And they say they care about the small business, but actually, when you become a supplier to them,
they
you realise they do not care. So that culture that is all marketing and branding doesn't run through their whole organisation. And I just think it's unbelievable. And I remember sitting down next to a guy from a large telecoms company one day at a dinner, and he said to me, you're very highly Googleable, He said, if you've got a big ego...
I quite like that.
Googleable. He said, you've got a very big ego. And I sort of sat down at this dinner, this CBI dinner, and next to this guy I'd never met before, and I was the only sort of small business amongst this group of...
I hope you walked away and left him.
And I said to him, I said, wow, this is going to be an interesting evening. Anyway, by the end of the evening, I had him quaking in his boots about the thought that he would be fired from his company one day and he would have no brand.
Yes.
Because he had relied on the logo of that company to open the door and close business.
And don't you think that, God, now we're both on the soapbox, will there be room for both of us up here? There are people in the corporate sector, and when their name is associated with the brand and logo, they're a somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take that away, they're nobodies.
But let me just say their defence.
Yes.
I think they're starting to realise that, but a lot of large companies won't allow them to have a brand online. They're stopping them from using Twitter, and they're not allowing them to have a voice. Now, there are exceptions. I worked closely with Accenture in the past, and they're a big technology firm, 330,000 staff, fantastically connected online, and are therefore attracting a lot of really amazing talent as a result of that. So there are exceptions in companies where their leaders think differently. But this is a huge transition.
There is a lot of lip service out there, isn't there, towards their customers and, in fact, towards their staff. You know, some of the wearing the customer's shoes. What's that all about? If you can find their slippers, they'll wear those as well.
I know. So that whole attitude of empathy is very important. But I thought I'd just say to you, somebody once told me, I think one of the privileges we have of being self-employed or small business is we're actually ultimately in control of our decisions and our life. That has to be why we give up a salary. Ultimately, it must be so we have our own sense of control. And they told me that happiness had been researched, and it was made up of 3 things. One was your constitution. Are you a happy person? And do you wake up in the morning, and are you naturally happy? That's 50%. 10% is your ability to achieve the things you want, and that is always a movable feast because we always move on to the next thing. 40% is how much you have control over your life. And that was a really big moment for me when I realised that actually, to a certain extent, even though I was an entrepreneur or a small business, I was still acting like I had a big employer, and I was still working with people I didn't like, and I was still playing the game. And when I realised that my values and my choices were mine, that was a big breakthrough for me in terms of being happy and managing my mindset and accepting the consequences and the joys of what I was doing. Because
the highs are very high, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
But the lows are very low.
And you have to manage that mindset at that low to get yourself back high. And when I first started 20 years ago as a business owner, I would say the lows and highs were maybe by the week. Now they can be by the hour, because in a more connected world, we get influence and we hear and feel and sense things, and things are going at such a fast pace, and we have to be able to manage our mindset in real time, all the time. And to me, the more connected I am, the more social capital I have around me, the more that helps my self-worth and my self-esteem.
It's been a strange old program today, because we were going to be talking about, being digitally connected, and I think we got over the reasons why you should be and the ways you should go about doing that. If anything, I suppose today's programme has actually raised probably a few more questions than it's actually answered, which is always an interesting show, and we'd love to hear your comments on what you've heard today. So do drop them. Go to the page, Business Connections Live, follow the programme links, and you can leave your feedback on the page as well, and just tell us what you thought. Or if you're watching it on YouTube, leave your comments and your feedback there as well. We really do appreciate it. Penny, it's nearly the end of the programme, and we always ask our lovely guests to look straight down camera number 1, which is this one today, and to say who they are and where they're from, and to give us the key takeaways that we should remember when the little white dot in the middle of the screen is long gone and we are all but memories. So, in your own time, straight down the lens, who you are, where you're from, and those key takeaways.
Well, I am Penny Power. I'm from the Business Cafe. You can tweet me at Penny Power and get in touch with me. My big message to the world is friendship first. And in a socially connected world, really understand your value as a friend to others, and then I think your business will flow a lot better and a lot more joyfully.
I like that. Short and sweet and really to the point as well. I hope you found today's programme a real insight into maybe what your business should be thinking about. that whole area of digital connectivity, I don't think it's to be left behind. It's not just for the kids. It can't be. It's got to be for everybody. Businesses have got to move forward. The lesson that I've learned from today's program is that maybe what I'm not doing is maybe I'm not entering into conversations in the right particular way, or maybe I'm not expanding on the conversation enough to actually get the maximum return from it. What I'm expecting, and maybe the same for you, from my social media commitment, I'm expecting instant returns. I think that if I just place something out there, then someone's going to come back because they're so aching to talk to me, and that really isn't the case. They don't know me from Adam. But if I was to invest a little bit more time in that relationship, if I was to really take on board what that individual is saying and then comment on it, and then maybe promote it myself, go back to them and tell them what I truly thought, maybe it's from that the relationship will grow. And will it work every time? Well, the answer is probably not. But it might work some of the time. And if it works some of the time, surely that's what business is all about. You don't go into a shop and buy everything. You go into a shop and you buy a few things. So, you know, a real insight for me today. If there was one last message that you would give them, what would it be?
Always be yourself.
Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to be something that you're
and
not.
don't think, you know, on LinkedIn, this is what I am, and on Facebook, this is who I am, because the more you can join those two things up and just truly be yourself with all your values, and people will connect with you then.
Really a fantastic show. Listen, Penny, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this edition of Business Connections Live. It's been my pleasure. We've been wanting to get you on the show for a long time, and I'd like to think now that you've been here, you'll come back again.
I'd love to. Thank you.
It was really good. So Penny Power, thank you very much indeed. I hope you really enjoyed today's show. So a little bit of housekeeping then before we walk out the door. Don't go yet, don't close your mouth. We've still got a little bit to do before we walk out the door, just to tell you who's coming up on the future shows. Next week's show, I guess, is going to be Louise Punter, CEO, Surrey Chamber of Commerce, about the need for all businesses to start exporting. Now, she's going to be good. You know Louise, I would take.
I know Louise really well.
Yeah.
I adore her.
Yeah, she's lovely. Louise Punter going to be on the program if you're in the Surrey Chamber of Commerce. But what's nice about Louise, she looks at it on a UK scale. It isn't just about narrowing it down to Surrey or wherever. She will talk about how the Chamber can help businesses just like yours right across the UK. So Louise Punter on next week's edition of the programme. Coming up on future programmes, Sylvia Baldock is going to be joining us. She great, always in yellow, fantastic speaker, and it's all about self-identification, knowing who you are and brand. So Sylvia's going to be on the show. Deborah Hume's going to be talking. Last time she was on, she was talking neuroscience in business. That may sound like something a bit strange. It isn't, because as we've been saying today, we are all people, but we have different ways that we handle different people. So Deborah's going to be talking about that. Ali Crump from A Drive Tech will be telling us about some of the ramifications of business when it comes to company cars, and also how you manage your fleet. Polly Buckland, the Typeface Group, is going to be joining us. Jackie Jarvis, James Potter, the LinkedIn man, that'll be a good show. Tom Evans, author of Practical Mindfulness, to name but a few. And don't forget as well, our Christmas party special live at midday on Monday the 19th of December, just a couple of days after my birthday, with an assortment of previous guests on the programme. It's the 16th if you want to send a card. Listen, let's roll those credits and get the heck out of here. Thank you very much indeed for your company today, until we do it all again live next Monday at 12 noon from me, Steve Highland, and the lovely Penny Power. It's bye for now, and don't forget, businessconnectionslive.com. Till the next time, bye for now. Bye-bye.